Ma'am?
Mm-hmm. Um, Hola.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So you already know what it is. Um, we'll just start by this. Today I want to do something a little bit different. I don't want to go over the same stocks that we always go over. It seems a little boring to me. And I want to take a break and I don't want to talk that much. And I want to get out of here temprano. So, because of that, we're just going to talk a little caca and talk overall about the stock market. Um, and maybe watch a video or two. You can chime in anytime you feel like it. I'll just say overall, personally, today was a relatively good day for me. I met my goal plus some, and how can I say? I could have done better, but hey, it is what it is. I was busy today. I do have a W-2, so um,
Please stop.
yeah,
You did good.
but I did well, and hey, so that's that. Um, so I was hoping for an even better day by being able to get out of something called NVDA, because
No comment.
it had been very foamy, uh, and it just seems that it continues to do great. It did a drop, uh, relatively minor, down to what about like 650, 640, something like that. And then it jumped back up and now it's like 750 something. Um so uh the market still can go cray cray. It really earnings really doesn't matter. But I was hoping earnings wasn't as strong as it was, but hey, it is what it is. Um so I had got stuck in NVDA shorting it at the wrong time, and I'm just gonna have to deal with the consequences. Um, Other than that, a lot the past couple of days I would say have been relatively weak. I don't know if you would agree with that or not. Our favorite stock, Rivian, that's been
I could.
tanking.
I concur.
Um, Caro, CAR, aka Avis, that's been tanking, just like DB said. And yeah, it's just it's personally I was hoping some of the big players that have been going up very crazily in recent weeks. I was hoping that, with the past couple of days, things will start to come down. Uh, uh, and it's only because it gets a little scary when things go down like crazy or go up like crazy. I like it to be a little bit a back and forth. But this seems to be very extra. So I don't know. So I don't know if the next we're gonna have somewhat of a correction, but I'm hoping we do have a little bit of a correction, to be totally honest. So we'll just wait and see. There are some indications that that's a possibility, but who really knows? Because I'm surprised the market has gotten this high. So there's a lot of things that have uh, surpassed 52-week high and then some, and they still keep going. NVDA is one of them. So, in many FANG tech stocks, they're included in that. Meta, Softy, the name 'em, you name them. So yeah, so we'll see what happens. Um, Also, this right here was interesting to me. I heard about it a few days ago, and I've had both credit cards, Capital One and Discover, and
I
I
have them both as well.
I was a little bit surprised, and I see how Discover how they do things versus Capital One, and I prefer Discover better because to me, Discover treats customers more like adults. They give you a lot of cash back. They give you high limits, and they just let you do the damn thing. They charge, from my perspective, relatively low fees, and Capital One, I would say, I'm not gonna say does the opposite, but I would say doesn't do what Discover does. To me, I lump Capital One as like every other credit card, and maybe closer to the bottom. Like if Discover's at the top, Capital One is not like Premier or something like that, but it's uh, closer to the bottom, I'll just say. And so to hear that Capital One was trying to buy Discover, it shocked me a little bit, a proposed merger or whatever. Um, but the fact that Capital One is proposing the merger says that Discover would become Capital One, and I don't believe that would be a good thing.
Can you
So,
read the article?
I,
Are you going to read the article?
I'll just read the key points, okay? Capital One's recently announced 35 over 35 billion. What is this? Acquisition of Discover Financial is a bid to protect itself against the rising tide of fintech and regulatory threats. The deal, if approved, enables Capital One to leapfrog JP Morgan as the biggest credit card company by loans and solidifies its position as the largest by purchase volume. But it's Discover's payments network, the rails, that shuffle digital dollars between consumers and merchants, collecting tolls along the way. What is key to understanding that is key to understanding this deal. It's to me, this deal, and this is my opinion, obviously, is a negative for the customer, is a negative for Discover's brand name, and for Discover's loyal, I'm not gonna say loyal customer base, but for Discover's customer base. And it allows Capital One to basically make Discover become Capital One, where it seems to me that Capital One, these are all credit card companies, financial companies, so they prey on everyone. But it's kind of like Capital One, in my opinion, is worse than Discover. And in my opinion, Discover's one of the better ones. So I I just, and then also it consolidates like more, it just consolidates um more money and power into Capital One's hand. I would probably still be against it if it was Discover trying to acquire Capital One, but at least then I'm like, oh well, maybe Discover wants to bring its business model uh in line with Capital One. And okay, maybe that could be a benefit if that was the plan. But by Capital One acquiring Discover, to me, it can go nowhere but down. So I'm hoping that the feds will uh uh X this proposed acquisition. Um just cut it in half, ax it, and say heck no. And I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on this?
I agree with most of your conclusions in regards to the difference between both credit cards, especially because I have both as well, and I've had Discovered for over 20 years. And I've had the original Discover card, and then I had the Discover It. And I feel like you said they do treat you like an adult. They do let you increase the limits. Um, and I've never really used Capital One that much, just once, um, for like a short time, and I've always fallen back to Discover. When you get like a merger like this, what happens is, as you said, um, a lot of things get shuffled and convoluted, and the person that loses is the customer, because now they're going to try to do like everything in a process that benefits them, um as a like fit in the box, because this is what we've been doing and what works for us. So I don't know as much information in terms of all the details regarding this, so I would have to do more of a reading, but I think I would tend to agree with your analysis thus far.
Yeah, I just think even without knowing the kind of like the details, okay, yeah, that's fine. But all I need to know is that Capital One, aka a worse company, is buying Discover, a better company. You know, it's just like if Spirit Airlines were buying, I don't know, American or something, it would just be like, oh, so now American's going to become just like Spirit. And I don't see that as being a good thing. And I believe, hey, the Capital One, yeah, they got the money because they charge very high fees. They give people low credit limits, and they're more, well, I would say predatory in like late fees and all of this kind of stuff that they charge. And from my perspective, they don't give good cash back benefits, you know? Um, so I don't know. I'm just hoping that the feds say no. And I'm wondering if other people have different experiences with Capital One and or Discover. But um, I, uh, I think, and just knowing a little bit about Discover, some of the programs, some of the things that they do, like how their customer service reps are all like in the United States. Um, they hire a lot in these inner cities and cities where jobs are harder to find. They don't go to China and hire customer service reps. It's just the they run their business. Uh, uh I think in a way an American company should try to run its business, especially a financial company like that or credit card company. I think they try to do more good than others in their business, and I think they have a solid name, and I would hate to see that ruined or tossed to the wind um, by a worse company. So I hope that Discover also thinks about this in their offer and not just allow it to go to the Feds to make a decision, but I think Discover has a say in this also. That, just like with Macy's, when these headhunters were looking to buy Macy's, it's kind of like, do you really want to give up what you've established and what you're doing in the industry, and how I think you've changed the industry for the better just for a song and dance? Or can you continue to make money, good money, but at the same time be a leader for better practices in your industry instead of selling out to uh, a company in your industry that I would say has worse practices? Um, Boeing replaces head of troubled 737 MAX program. Um, Boeing is replacing the head of its 737 MAX program less than 2 months after a panel blew out mid flight during an Alaskan Airlines flight with a MAX 9. Um, uh, okay. So I'm assuming the MAX 9 is designed the same way as the 737, because if this person's the head of the MAX 9 program, uh, it seems like those are two different planes. So I'm wondering how it's related, but okay. Katie Ringo will succeed Ed Clark, who is leaving the company. Stan Dill, CEO of Boeing's commercial airplane unit, told employees. I'm curious if this Ed Clark, um, if he was, uh, if he if his background is in engineering, um, science background, or if his background is in business. And I only say that because uh, I had heard prior, when this had first happened, that Boeing, the reason why they got into trouble with the 737 and kind of like all the, even leading up to the 737, the mishaps and the lying about what was wrong with the 737 and stuff like that, and uh, um, trying to fix it without notifying airlines and all of this, was because Boeing, and I think, in my opinion, and other people's in the past, had been a standard, a high standard of excellence in engineering. And it was second to none, let's say back in the day. And they were making money hand over fist like people do. And then they had brought in a lot of people who didn't have an engineering background, and they came from a business background, and they, as business people like to do, cut costs, cut costs, cut costs, and even squeeze every single nickel, dime, penny, everything out. So then a lot of people, it's kind of like, you have a company, and there are groups of people who basically run the company. If you have, let's say, a company um, that focus on, um, less nuclear industry, the safety department, the safety people, they may kind of like lead discussions on a lot of things, because Nuclear is highly regulated and it's very safety sensitive. If you have a company that's, I don't know, automotive focused, then you may have people who, the the technicians, or um, they may kind of lead the company. So you always have a group of people. Some companies just run by management, or the executive suite, or middle management, or eh, different departments. You know, kind of the company has a focus on certain things, and um, it was said that Boeing went away from its um kind of like origin as an engineering company, um, and became more focused on the dollar, and businessmen made the final say versus engineers making the final say. And so that was that was just it. And so I'm wondering if this person, um, Clark, I'm just wondering what his background is, because it just I it's just like, okay, was this a continuation of more recent years in Boeing's history, or was it a turnaround to say, hey, let's go back to what we had been? And then it says here the January 5th incident aboard the Alaskan Airlines 737 MAX 9. Oh, so this was a 737 MAX 9 plane, then, I guess. Huh. I thought they were saying there were two different planes, but okay, whatever. Is the latest crisis for Boeing that has been trying to find its footing in the years after fatal crashes of its Boeing 737 MAX 8. Okay, okay. So this is another revision of the 737. Okay. Its best selling plane. They may just have to scratch 737 name and call it, 747 or something, because by the end of this, the 737 name, it may just have a bad taste in people's mouth. Any comments, Munoz?
I was trying to find some research to see what his background was, but all it said was he's the director of engineering and he came also from Delta as the director of engineering from Delta.
Okay. At least he
That's
was
all.
the director of engineering.
Yes, sir.
And I just, let's just hope he had an engineering background.
That's all I could find. Briefly, like really quick, like pseudo fast. Um,
Um, any thoughts about this, or it's not like this is gonna make them go uh out of business, or what's the other company, Airbus or whatever, is gonna take over or something like that. It's just the optics is bad. Not only are the optics bad, but I'm just saying what they did. I'm going back to the very beginning when these incidences were occurring. What they've done recently, I'm not going to say they haven't done the right thing after they said, hey, we're going to fix this issue. And it's not just going to be a software upgrade or a software fix, which really, in many cases, doesn't mean anything, but we're going to fix the issue. So I don't have any arguments there. The issue I had with going back to the beginning was, in the beginning, They lied. They tried to cover this issue up. They tried to make the software correction without notifying people or letting airlines know or pilots know without giving training. They tried to do a lot of stuff that's very fugazi and very bad. And unfortunately, I think a lot of companies try to do now is that, hey, we know I'm a car company. I know I have airbag issues. And instead of telling people immediately and saying, hey, let's come in a orderly fashion and get it replaced, you wait to people report it, people start dying and getting into accidents when you know there's an issue. That's the problem that I have. And I think it's hard to like say, oh, because this is kind of like the only company, there's really not much competition, you know? And so it's not like, hey, if Toyota does something bad, you can go to Ford or vice versa or whatever. But to do stuff like that as a company, I think is is basically saying you're doing this cost benefit analysis and saying, hey, uh, a person's life is worth X amount, or um, this will happen to X number of people, but it will cost us X versus if we just come out in the very beginning and say what the issue is and notify people before people start dying and dropping
Yeah,
dead.
it's like they put the dollars instead of the morality and the righteousness and lives of people um before money. Like eh, they should focus on doing what's right, but they just let it escalate until it gets to a point where like, oh, I guess this thing blew off and
Yes,
people could
maybe
have
they didn't think it
died.
would be that bad,
And they're
or
like,
if they,
oh, it's probably not gonna happen. We have one in a millionth chance of it happening. It probably won't happen, you know. And so until it happens and things like this escalated and they're going viral because things like this probably happen all the time,
yes, it
but
does.
they kind of put it under the rug, and it's because when things are recorded and things go viral, this is when all eyes and the magnifying glass is on them. But these things probably happen all the time. They're not reported. And when they should, like you said, take care of the issue, own up to the responsibility, and take care of it before it really gets to the point where it's like all eyes on me and I should have done this in the first place. It's like if the seatbelt is broken, it's broken. Let's go get another one or let's fix it, sew it, whatever you need to do. But it's broken. Let's just fix it because we can't say it's not. It's already kind of broken. You got to fix it. And it's a safety issue because if not, somebody's going to get hurt. So it's just a morality thing. And but you said, but it's all about the dinero. And until all eyes are on me and they're losing millions and millions of dollars by the second, that's when they put like they instigate it to the nth degree that things have to be done properly when they should have been doing it properly in the first place. It's like a doctor, like a bad doctor. Like they're supposed to be monitoring, taking care of the patient, but once you see that this doctor is like killing people left and right, it's like, dang, you got to get this doctor out of here, or he's going to continue. That's it. Oh yeah, I was
Um,
looking like this article.
this is the
What does it
last
say?
thing. The last thing we'll talk about really quick.
52% of Black Americans say home ownership is a mark of success, report finds, but it can conflict with other goals. Okay.
Um, so I just saw this as you were talking, and it
I had
struck
seen
my
it
thing.
too. You
It,
blow it up?
you can't see it, you said? You said you cannot see this
I
text?
can see it now. I can see it.
Okay. Um, so I saw this while you were talking a minute ago, and I'm like, oh, okay, Black Americans, what does this mean? Home ownership. Um, and then I'm like, I hate these articles because first of all, they give a percentage. 52% Black Americans say home ownership is a mark of success, report finds. So the first question I have to say is only 52%. Wouldn't you would think like 99% would say that?
What is
And
the source of this 52%? That's my question.
this report, this so-called report is the source.
Yeah, but
And
who are they like polling? Like what's the number that they're getting this, like how many people are being really polled? Like I wanna
I guess
have
they're
more,
saying they're polling Black Americans. I don't know the number, but maybe we'll find.
because they could just be like, oh, continue.
I'm assuming they are polling a um proper sample of Black Americans to get this, let's say, number for
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, 80,
Survey.
90% accuracy, let's say that.
All right, continue.
So so this 52% says, okay, what is this? And it says 52% Black Americans. You could technically cross out Black Americans and just say Americans because I'm assuming they, any Americans, black, white, or whatever, would say the same thing. And then it says, but can conflict with other goals. And so it just made me think, like, okay, what other goals are there out there? Like, yes, there's other goals, but if you don't control where you live, how can you have any other goals?
I believe that having a stable place to live should be your number one goal,
Yes,
in my opinion. But that's what do I know? Because look at how much housing has changed. Look at how much interest rates and inflation. But if you have a stable place to live, that can kind of consolidate and help you with these other so-called conflicts. Just my opinion.
yes, that's why I'm saying, like, every other goal that you would have, whether it's job, marriage, a family, whatever goal you can think of, it starts with controlling your the roof over your head. If you don't control that, you're potentially just a homeless person walking around
You can say that again.
because you could pay $200 for rent and be like, "Oh, I only paid $200," and the next day you could be out on the street, and because you weren't paying attention, the market has went up, and you have to pay freaking I don't know, three thousand
700.
dollars for rent.
This is what happened. I was reading an article in North Carolina. They had like they live in the city area or whatever in like these condos that were fairly priced. And then all of a sudden it was like a 150% increase and everybody was just in shock. And this is what happens, when, buildings get sold or whatever, or like they're trying to pay interest rates that are variable interest rates. And I believe, if you don't go to a escuela, college, or whatever, you want to get yourself in debt, you should get yourself in debt to have a house, an apartment, somewhere stable to live, because you're going to get old. It's a fact of life, and you need a roof over your head. And when you're like old and in bad health or in bad condition and you can't work or have a job, if you have a stable place to live, at least you know you can go get some help from these other so-called uh programs that they have, at least to get fed. You know, somebody's going to give you something. But if you have a roof over your head, that's like 70%, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a
You can
big,
figure things out. You can figure
yeah,
things out because at least you can sleep on the floor and you'll be all right, but you're not gonna be
yeah, you
outside.
can sleep on the floor. You can rent out your
Exactly.
rooms. You
Mm-hmm.
can maybe rent out your parking space. You can do things um like like you can do things to get by like for food and stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
at least if you like you said, it's like kind of like 70% of your problems versus
Mm-hmm.
if it's I just think you see a lot of people who are so-called homeless or end up being homeless or something like that,
Yeah,
or
like that guy in Canada who's like, oh, I want to kill myself because, you know, the rent has gone up so high and I can't afford it. But it's as you said, you had 50 years working really good job as a trucker. What did you
he
do with
said he was
yourself?
making over 100,000, and this was
More than the average folk for 20 plus years, making more than the average folk, and you don't even have a little apartment or like a mini home. Like, come on now, you could have gone a mini home
uh
and or even a van.
yeah, a piece of
You
land
could
or
have
something.
like you could have gone a RV. Let's say
Yeah,
you
a
didn't want to
piece
get
of
a casa.
land
You
that you
could
could put
have
a
gone an
camper on or something.
RV. Let's say your RV, let's say it costs $20,000. Let's say, or even 30. It's your RV. You can live there. And you don't
Well,
have
yeah,
nothing.
and then
You don't
let's say
have
you got
nothing to say for yourself, like, oh, I've been making money all this time and you don't even have a place to live. And now you're like blaming the government. You should blame yourself. Come on
it's we
now.
got about 2 minutes, but it just struck me when you were talking last that they talk about, okay, most see it as a hallmark of success, but most it's 52%. So that means 48% don't see it as a hallmark, or 48% don't know, I guess, or have no opinion.
Yeah, that's a
While
good
home,
question. Most people, I think people do should know this. And people out there who don't have an opinion is because either A, they're ignorant or don't want to like say anything, but it should be a success factor. Because if you have a casa, like I said, 60 to 70% of your problem is going to get resolved because at least you can sleep on the floor and resolve some issues. Even if you have to go work at McDonald's and people be hating on McDonald's, but hey, at least if you go work at McDonald's, you can have somewhere to eat, 50% off, and you'll be able to live. Even if you live on the floor, you can get airbed and call it a day. Come on now.
um, so we got less than a minute, so I'm not gonna bemoan the point, but basically to finish up the 2 points, home ownership can be a path to wealth, but a mortgage payment, other housing related expenses may cause financial strain. It, I'll just say this: if you're paying a mortgage payment, you have some equity. If you're paying rent, you have nothing, and
Bingo.
rent is always going to be higher than the price to buy housing in almost all cases, in many places that you want to live at. I'll just say that. I'll leave it at that.
And you could
And
always, like you said, equity, you can always get something from the casa. If you need to borrow money from the casa, you can.
all right, peace out. Thanks for the
So
discussion today.